The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron, here to introduce our panelists tonight. We've got Ryan Kleckner back. He's a former special operations sniper, current author, firearms attorney, runs RocketFFL.com, and much more. Ryan, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
Next up, we got an oldie but a goodie rejoining us. I'm so glad to have him back. And now that I'm hosting the show, we've got Baraka Ulrich James, host of Civilian Carry Radio. Let me say that again, host of Civilian Carry Radio on the Firearms Radio Network, chairman and founder of MASF, Modern American Shooting and Firearms. Baraka, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me back on.
Absolutely, man. Good to have you back. Before we get started, guys, I'd like to remind the listeners to go, if they use Amazon, go to firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. And then just search for whatever you're looking for. It'll take you to Amazon. But the best part is part of your purchase doesn't cost you anything. Goes to help support shows like This Week in Guns and the Firearms Radio Network. So please visit if you're going to buy stuff from Amazon. And again, Patriot Patch Company, amazing stuff. Patch of the Month Club, all the great stuff there. I hit Jake up today and I said, Jake, you got to let me know what's the next Patch of the Month Club so I can talk about it on the show tonight. And he sent me a secret, or he told me it was a secret, and then blocked me on Facebook. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what's next, but you can also find their shirts, their patches, their cleaning mats, everything else that they've got at patriotpatch.co. And guys, I think we should just get right into the news. First up tonight, the Trump slump. It says, despite Trump slump, 2017 may still be a record year. This is reported over at Breitbart. And, basically it talks about a lot of numbers from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and The Guardian basically wrote an article saying that the Trump slump has meant nearly $100 million fall in firearms revenue compared with the same quarter last year. They use American Outdoor Brands, which is the rebranded Smith & Wesson, saying that they reported a 48.5% decrease in firearms revenue compared with the same quarter last year. And, so The Guardian is obviously trying to push people against Trump and do what the media does. Breitbart says it's not true. What do you guys think about this?
Well, as we both know, as all of us know, President Obama was the best gun salesman there ever was in the last 8 years. So now that people are no longer panicked and worrying about people trying to push further into putting more legislation to take away guns from law-abiding citizens, then the panic's not there anymore. I mean, one of the things that was a knee-jerk reaction to me yesterday when I saw about the school shooting in Spokane. What if it was still in the Obama administration? What was coming right after that? Obama was going to come on and say what? We need more common sense gun legislation. And I was so relieved that that wasn't going to occur in the Trump presidency that,
Yeah, I totally agree. Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah, so the problem is we have short memories, I think, as the public, which is why the news can get us so spun up about things, is we like to look at last year, and they call it the Trump slump. Yes, from last year, sales might be down, but if you look at a trend line in the last 10 years, last 15 years, we are still steadily increasing upwards. Now, we might have a blip, which was President Obama being the best salesman, but and we may have come down from that blip, but that does not mean that we have a negative overall result. In fact, I think it's also a mistake to look at the manufacturers, because it is true. The manufacturers are having a hard time. The reason they're having a hard time is that it took them a while to catch up, some manufacturers more than others, but they flooded their warehouses with so much inventory that when the bottom dropped out of that rush, they were stuck with so much capacity and so much inventory that just having enough machines to run at a certain capacity is a huge risk. You're going to lose money every day when that machine's not pumping out something. So the manufacturers are being hit hard. The distributors, some of them, depending on how much they stocked up, are going to be hit hard. But I don't think at the retail level, it's that bad. We're hearing some horrible scenarios, but overall, I still think retail's strong because the I don't know what you call it, but the accordion effect of what's happening from the manufacturers having a hard time working down to the retailers. So I think it's much ado about nothing, and we're still a strong industry.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's another Yahoo article that talks about U.S. gun makers battle Trump slump as sales fall compared to 2016. So I wasn't really sure where they were getting all this. So I took some NICS numbers. The NICS actually publishes how many checks they've done. And some key points that I came up with is that I looked at May, June, July, and August because it's recent and this summer. And I looked from 2013 to 2017. So what I got out of this data was that May showed growth year over year. So we've got consistently higher. So from 2013 to 14, there was 3.44% growth, et cetera, all the way up through 2017.
Well, yeah, May.
I think he froze. All right, so I'm going to. Oh, you froze. Are you back, Ryan?
I'm here.
Okay, what were you saying? You said May has.
Yeah, you are correct. May was the highest recorded May on record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we go June. It showed solid growth, except for 2017, which had a 10% decrease over 2016's record-setting numbers. If we take 2016 out, then 2017 had a 24% increase over 2015. If we take those 5 years and we actually average it out, there was an average of about 3% growth. So even if we only had 3% growth from 2015, 16, and 17, we still had a monstrous growth just by removing 2016 from the numbers and just saying, hey, that's an anomaly. So let's take it out for now and see what we see. July also showed solid growth, except for 2017, which had a 17% decrease over 2016's, again, record-setting numbers. So if we remove 2016 as an anomaly, 2017 had a 9% increase over 2015, which is greater than the average 5% growth of the month from 2013 to 2016. Now, August shows solid month-over-month growth all the way through those. And I mean, at the end of the day, my famous tagline that everyone's going to hammer me on right now. 2016 just had those record months. We had 39% growth in June of 2016 and 37% growth in July of 2016. So it's not even fair to say that we're down. We just had those record months, and now we're kind of back in business and still a little bit higher than I think we would be. But I don't know if these numbers are valid or not really. I just, it's NICS checks. I don't really know exactly what that means.
So NICS checks, the National Instant Criminal Check System, are the FBI's background check that you have to run on a gun purchase from a dealer, except not always. And so I'm glad you brought that up that way, Sean, because NICS checks, I don't think, are actually an accurate figure for how many guns that are sold over the counter. It's just not. The reason why is there are many transactions that are exempted from NICS checks. And I'm not just talking like personal transactions from friend to friend. I mean, over the counter, Arizona, for example, you had the concealed weapons permit when I used to live there. You didn't have to do a NICS check. So there's not a single gun I bought in Arizona where I had a NICS check. So I don't know how many guns that came into the economy, came in, from the industry to me without being recorded on NICS. And now, so that means that the NICS number isn't really going to show how many transactions we had. But on the opposite end of the scale, there are states that are allowed to use NICS to rerun every concealed weapon permit holder every month. So just because you had a permit, they rerun you through NICS. So that then inflates the numbers. So you end up with these weird numbers. I think you did the right thing, Sean, showing the trend. That's what's important. But the NSSF will also put out what they call their adjusted NICS numbers, or the NSSF adjusted NICS numbers. And those are really pretty spot on the total number of firearms that were sold that month.
Very interesting. Okay, so, wow. I don't even know where to take that now. So those numbers are, I guess, not good indicators of really, where everything is there.
No, I think it's a good indicator for growth. I think you did the right thing, because even with those discrepancies, you can assume they're going to be pretty much the same month over month. Right? It's going to normalize itself out. So growth and percentage changes, I think, are still pretty accurate. But what's wrong is when newspapers get a hold of that NICS number and try to talk about that's how many guns made it into the streets that month. That's not true.
Yeah, interesting. So I guess we are seeing growth. We're obviously not seeing these numbers specifically, but I think we are seeing growth. The weird thing that I didn't know is that they run their entire CCW database through NICS every month.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that either.
That's huge. I had no idea, actually.
Only a couple states do that. So NICS can't be used by anyone except for firearms transactions, and apparently these states, Because for my clients, for FFLs, for manufacturers, they can't employ prohibited persons either. I'd love for them to be able to use NICS upon hiring somebody to check, but it's actually illegal to use it for anything but a gun purchase for us.
Wow. Very interesting. All right. So yeah, I mean, I guess again, the media trying to vilify the president over this Trump slump. But so I did an ad hoc poll today, my Facebook, I've got a lot of industry friends, and almost resoundingly, people were saying that they were up. There was only a couple that were saying they were down, and they were usually in a market that was specifically getting undercut right now. Like ARs, you can buy a decent AR for $400 right now. And obviously a lot of these custom companies that make ARs, they can't get anywhere near that. They can't even run their machines for that much money. So it seemed to be them that were suffering the most. But what I did see is almost resoundingly that they were on an upward trend right now, that the summer's over, people are getting back on it, kids are back to school, and people are back to their hobby. Ryan, have you heard or seen any industry hullabaloo that kind of talks about that stuff? Like, you have any inside information or anything as to that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And what I said before about the accordion effect, it has not gone upstream to affect the manufacturers yet. So retailers starting to see the boom. Depending on the distributor, they're seeing the boom. And I think you're going to have to give manufacturers another 6 months or more to start getting it to pick back up.
Yeah, understood. Plus, yeah, I mean, just so many stockpiles sitting in factories and stuff. And,
and this is good news. This shouldn't be, but you can get an AR for $400.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely a buyer's market right now. That's for dang sure.
I want to normalize gun ownership. What better way to do it than to lower the threshold, right?
Agreed. And ammo is dropping dramatically, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The entire industry is definitely interesting right now. And I'm glad to see a lot of my friends, their businesses are picking up and stuff, because, you worry about that stuff. You don't want to see your friends do poorly. And I know some of them have been a little bit stressed, but I think in general, most of them the days are looking up. So hang in there, guys. The next story was NSSF, what to do with firearms and ammunition affected by floodwaters. So obviously this is a concern right now. So NSSF and SAMI, SAAMI, the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute, put out some guidelines. There's a couple different guidelines, but this article from Guns America actually kind of brings them both together and talks about what to do if your stuff is submerged. So guns, basically take them apart, put a couple coats of a moisture displacing lubricant like Hoppy's number 9 or WD-40 just to clean and stabilize. But basically then they say, take it to a qualified gunsmith to have them look it over before putting the gun back in service. Ammunition, they just basically say dispose of it in a safe and responsible manner. There's a whole lot of words other than that, but I know. So we've got Texas, we've got Florida. A lot of people have water damage to guns and ammunition and things like that. So I thought this was kind of timely to maybe discuss just for a minute.
No, it's good. I'm glad they put that out there, because you definitely don't want people having something that can corrode and rust, which I've seen plenty of times in humid environments down south, because that might be the last thing on their mind. And not only that, but if their gun, they didn't think about it and it's rusting, you got some of these older like Beretta 92s and things like that I'm just being honest, that could have gotten submerged. They look fine on the outside, but on the inside, they're rusting away. So, I mean, people can protect their investments. So I think it is timely.
Yeah, especially for self-defense ammo too. People don't realize that the moisture may have gotten in there and hurt it. So I think it's great. I'm glad they're putting stuff out. I don't think SAMI does enough stuff like this. So whenever they do it, I'm happy.
Yeah. And I mean, I do believe that this is a pretty old report. They just took some snippets from both reports, put them together in an article, and posted it over at Guns America. So go check it out, especially if you've been affected or someone who's affected. At least maybe just send them the article so they have an idea of where to start. I think obviously their lives are a little bit interesting right now, so the more information they can have up front when they get to it would be the best. Next one, Share Act published, HR 3668 is live. Ryan, do you know much about this one?
I kind of.
Okay.
And the reason I just groaned there is I've been so wrong about this thing. I never thought this would ever see as far as it has. I'm glad it has. I was pessimistic, so take my advice with a grain of salt, because I've been wrong so far.
So this SHARE, which is the Sportsman's Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act, has been published and has been assigned a bill, HR 3668. It goes to committee next Tuesday. There's a number of measures included in this version of the bill, including one clarifying a gun owner's right to transport a weapon. And the most significant is the Hearing Protection Act. So if approved, removes silencers from the NFA. So yeah, I mean, I'm shocked.
That's the one I meant, by the way, not the Share Act. The Share Act I always thought was going to go. Just the Hearing Protection Act, I thought never had a chance. But here it is, and I hope it makes it.
I know. I would honestly be shocked, but then again, I was shocked when Trump got elected president. So I like these shocks in my life, honestly. So yeah, I guess we just have to keep track of it and see where it goes from here. But it's on GovTrack, so you can track kind of where it has a number now, so we can track it and follow it and see every single thing that happens in regards to it. So pretty cool stuff. Next story tonight is Maj Touré and other gun groups that don't fit the right-wing stereotype. So this is an article on Salon, so not necessarily known for their pro-gun content, but basically it just talks about the way to get more people involved in guns is to have them not be white people, basically.
I'm sending this to Maj right now. We talk at least once a week, so let him know about this article because I don't know if you've seen it.
Definitely. So there's 6 gun groups that aren't just for white right wingers, and I thought this was interesting. So I'm just going to read them off: the Redneck Revolt and John Brown Gun Club, Pink Pistols, which is the LGBTQ. I'm not sure of all the acronyms these days, but
LGBT community. Yeah, it's out in San Francisco.
Yeah. So another great organization. We've had someone on the We Like Shooting show from this organization. The National African American Gun Association, which is Philip Smith. We've had him on the We Like Shooting show as well. A great organization, and I believe I am actually a member. The Liberal Gun Club, the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, and number 6, Black Guns Matter, with our friend Maj Touré. So what do you think about what this says? They talk about white fright and things like that, so they're using some inflammatory language. But Baraka, what are your thoughts here?
Well, so like with our own organization, the reason why we're called Modern American Shooting and Firearms is one of the biggest things that we had to combat against the anti-gun crowd is what do they use to scare people off? They usually use 2 stereotypes. One is like a 3-tooth, quote unquote redneck hillbilly guy to be scared of out in the woods that owns a gun, and the other one is a PTSD stricken vet who's an alcoholic having a gun. They always perpetuate those 2 stereotypes to scare other people away from guns. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to understand that it's your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, the people that your kids go to school with, they're women, they're other, people of every race, color, creed, and culture. So we wanted people to understand that gun ownership is for any and every law-abiding citizen in the United States, and that's who the Second Amendment is for us to be able to protect ourselves, to take responsibility for our own lives. So it's just funny to me that people still fall into those scare tactics that the antis use to try to get people away from gun ownership, and the reason we all know why they ultimately do that. So it's just I just can't believe that still works, in some of these places, because mainstream, I would have thought that people would have understood now. I mean, what was really interesting to me was one day when I was going to a class here locally at our friend John Murphy's, and my priest, I'm Catholic, my priest is in the class, and then I go to another class and he's at Kerry Davids's Dark Angel medical class, and So I pulled my priest aside and he told me, oh yeah, before I took the cloth, I was a CQB expert with the FBI. I used to do dignitaries, and so I'm CQB with a knife and a gun for fighting in small places. I was like, oh, he's like, I love when you and your wife come to mass because I always know there's at least 2 other guns and 2 other knives in the parish besides myself.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just interesting.
It's good. Ryan, thoughts on this one?
I think it's awesome. More people, the better. I think it's a sad state that we're in, that we have to have so many different groups to make people feel included, but it's the reality of the beast right now. I'd eventually like to just get to the us group.
Yes.
It's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. And, Maj, it doesn't matter, race, color, creed, sexuality, doesn't matter. You're more than welcome at a Black Guns Matter meeting. The Second Amendment for Everybody, Tony Simon in Jersey. We've got MASF. I mean, all these fantastic groups, and, all inclusive. Like MASF is all about everybody. There's not one race or anything that's involved. 2A for Everybody is all about everybody and everything. And so is Black Guns Matter. So I really think that a lot of these groups are really coming together and, bringing all of these people together. And sooner or later, we're all eventually going to figure out we're on the same side, right?
Amen.
Next up, it drives me directly into the next story. Women driving gun sales in the Captain Obvious files. Breitbart reports that women, millennials, are all driving it. Bustle is an online website that posts articles. They talk about women are less safe if they have a gun in the house, and in doing so failed to highlight the myriad real life stories of women using guns for self-defense. And then they post a bunch of different articles that they reported on of women using guns and firearms to protect themselves. So not only are, minorities and different sexualities and races and creeds and everything driving it, but I think women are just a huge part of the growth in the firearms industry.
Very
and
true.
Manufacturers are missing it big time, in my opinion.
Yes, they are. Ryan is dead on. And it's so weird about that, Ryan, because every class I go to, I see more and more women coming to every year. Top trainers in the United States, you go to the classes, it used to be like one woman every other class. Now there's 2, 3, 4 in classes, and they're coming out in droves. And I'm glad, and I'm happy to see that. And it's also part of the instructors. Some of the good instructors out there, I remember going to one of Steve Fisher's classes for Sonal Concepts. I went to a handgun shoot house. Well, it was just a gun shoot house. We were learning how to clear rooms and stuff for residential up at Alliance, Ohio PD. And the first thing he said to the class, he's like, "How many of you all are here and are married?" He set this up. We all raised our hands, and he's like, where's your freaking wives? He's like, they're the ones who are, while you guys are here, they're home with your kids and your dogs and all the other things you love. Why don't you have them here learning how to clear the house? And light bulb went off, and people started bringing their wives, and I'm glad to see that.
Awesome. Ryan, you said the manufacturers are missing it. You want to expand on that?
Oh, huge. Our industry, I don't get. I mean, I'm glad we're making a turnaround here, and I'll try and keep this not turning into a rant, but many members of our industry would be completely out of business if they're in any other industry. If you went into a car dealership that looked like the average gun store that you find across America, you'd never buy a car. If you had salesmen that talked down to you because they thought they knew more than you, that would never come and acknowledge you, that was a poorly lit, not good price tags, dirty, dank building, all the things I could possibly say about our customer service. Now, there's exceptions to that. Go to Scottsdale Gun Club and see what a gun store looks like and how it's done right. And the reason places like that are killing it is because they figured out, hey, maybe we might have to do some salesmanship here. Well, the same thing I think happens for manufacturers. So, Sean, I was a vice president at Remington Outdoor Company. So all those brands. And so I'm always like, I'm a gun guy also. So I felt like I was back and forth all the time with the people going, making a 700 purple is not a new model. Let's get a new gun here. Or for women, most of my friends, Brock, I don't know if you're the same way, but they're shocked when I don't recommend the tiniest gun possible for a woman. They say, I want to get my wife this gun because you see how tiny it was? That's why you shouldn't get it to her. What gun should I get her? I don't know. Get her a Glock 19.
Exactly.
Well, that's a big gun. Yes, and it's going to work. And you know what's better than not having to worry about clearing a malfunction is not having a malfunction in the first place.
Amen.
So when they change the color of a gun, my wife is an example. She'd rather have a sniper gray Cerakoted gun, if she's going to have a color, than teal or pink. She'd also rather have something that fit her and not a youth gun. So I don't get why manufacturers aren't even if it's fluff, even if it's just marketing BS, at least they'd be trying. On a rifle stock, show me how the curve of that rifle stock fits a woman's frame better. Show me how the comb on that cheek rest fits a woman's higher cheekbones. Do stuff like that to really make them feel comfortable and bring them in. Because I don't know, I think a pink version of a tiny plastic gun might be condescending.
And to segue off of what Ryan's saying, that was the case with my wife. My wife's a former Marine. She obviously didn't learn how to use pistols. I got her lots of pistol training with some of the nation's top instructors. She carries a shield appendix just because a 19 is too heavy for her. She's 5'3", 115 pounds, and she can't, it's just too much gun. But she carries 4 mags, and she can reload really fast. But the same thing, what you just said, when I signed her for a shotgun class, the first thing I did was borrowed one of my friend's youth model 20 gauges. And she tried it. She hated it. She took my Remington 870. It was like with the Magpul stock. And she's like, oh, this fits so nicely. I was like, that's a lot of gun for you, honey. Now it's hers. I used to have it, but now it's hers because she loved it. And that's what she uses. So she
That's awesome.
that one for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'd be happy to have that problem any day, right? I mean, and as another segue, the 12 versus 20 thing. Yeah, guys that are listening, get your girls a 12 gauge.
Yes.
I actually think 20 gauges will kick the same amount, maybe more than a 12 gauge, because they're smaller guns. So they're lighter. And if you ever go look at the box of shells, Sean, and you look at the ounce weight and the velocity, 12 gauge is like the target, the cheap loads for training are usually 1 ounce and 1/8 at about 1,100 feet a second. The 20 gauge is 1 ounce at 1,100 feet a second.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's only 1/8 of an ounce less in a much lighter and smaller gun. Just
Right.
do the 12 gauge and get it over with.
Yeah, totally agree. And, I'm fortunate that I get to see a lot of women coming through classes and things like that. And so many of them have these tiny little guns and they take 1 or 2 shots and they hate everything about it. And then we go rent them a different gun, like a 19 or a shield or something like that. And boom, it's like, oh yeah, okay, now this is fun. They go from being really timid and scared because it's really uncomfortable to shoot those tiny guns. And boom, suddenly they love it once they upgrade to something a bit bigger and more full size. So yeah.
I have to add one last thing.
Driving our industry, though, that's probably a bad choice of words, right? Do we really want them driving the industry?
So a year ago on Monday, we hosted my friend Steve Fisher. He's one of the best shotgun instructors in the United States here at our home range, and we had a women's home defense shotgun class. He said, bring whatever shotguns you have. Not one of them came with a 20 gauge, and there was 14 women, and all of them left there so ecstatic, so happy. And the number one they liked was the Remington 870. Number 2 was the Mossberg 500, and they all shot like double aught buck number 9 Remington, and they loved it. They were patterning out 15 yards, about that big, about the size of an 8-inch plate. So they loved it.
Very nice.
It was awesome.
Stuff like that. All right, so the next story that we've got is not so positive. Man charged after gun falls out of holster and negligently discharged in the grocery store. So I was like, well, that kind of sucks that it falls out of his holster. But then you go actually read the article. Nope. He just had the gun stuck directly in his waistband, started to fall. So he broke all the rules. Didn't have it in a holster. The gun started to fall. He tried to catch it, and he got a hole in his leg, a hole in the floor, and a hole in the ceiling for his troubles.
And he gave a lot more ammunition to the antis once again. And this is exactly what we're talking about. Why we push what we push. Firearm, our motto, just so you know, Ryan, you've never heard of our organization, is gun ownership is your right, but safety and education is your responsibility. And the reason why is this exact thing. Just please go out. If you're going to buy a firearm, learn safety. How do you learn safety? Through proper education and training. Those are the only ways. And then mindset, learn how, know what a holster's for, learn, like you said, everyone teaches, every basic instructor class says, if the gun falls, let it fall. Just get out of the way.
Unless
it's a SIG P320. Yeah. Oh, you beat me to it.
Well, then you better jump to the ground and hope to God it doesn't hit you. Yeah.
Terrible. Terrible people.
Terrible.
Yeah, this also does the narrative of guns just go off. That's one of the ones that's
I hate that. I hate that. Or accidentally. It's negligence every way.
Yeah, there's no 80s, there's NDs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Agreed. So yeah, I mean, people get a holster. The people that listen to the show, the people that listen to shows on the Firearms Radio Network, that's not our audience. If I could just be for 1 second out in the public eye where everyone can see, not just people in our echo chamber, and say, wear a holster. Just wear a holster. Wear a holster. Use a holster. Just there's no other way about it. Just do it. It's not even an option. Just do it. I think it'd be a lot less nonsense if we did things like that.
True.
All right. So guys, in Florida during the hurricane that was moving through there, a bunch of, this is on a website called Blue Lives Matter, but the original story said Orlando looters barricaded in Academy sports store with stolen guns. Basically, a couple of people went in, were stealing some guns, loading them up. The cops showed up. One guy surrendered. One guy went in, and there was a standoff. Basically what happened is the cops were like, look, these are not looters. These are not, people running in and running out real quick. These were burglars, and they got them both. They got them both into custody. But what do you guys think about this kind of thing when we have natural disasters and stuff?
Well, unfortunately, people are vultures. I mean, bad people are vultures. They look for an opportunity. They're opportunists and they're vultures. And if there's a place to do where they know there's going to be absence of law enforcement, period, then they're going to go out and do whatever it is that they're going to do. And I mean, you bet if you want to think that they're not, you're fooling yourself. You just need to be prepared. So law-abiding citizens, every time this goes on, you see people on Facebook, especially in our community, again, the echo chamber, saying, start loading those mags. That hurricane's coming towards your house. You know what's going to go on. Your alarm system's down, no power. We know, but the regular law-abiding citizens don't. They think that people are going to go, and in a lot of places they do. The neighbors come together and stuff like that. But at the same time, if there's a bad element nearby, and especially when these big cities, you're blocks away from, a very bad neighborhood, those people in the bad neighborhood are going to know, because they're saying law enforcement's not going to be here to protect you. They're not going to be out on duty. They're going to take advantage of that every time. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to have responsibility for your own life. So.
Can I also just say that the original story talked about looters and a standoff, when really in all actuality, that's not what it was at all. It was people robbing a gun store because they saw the opportunity. There was no standoff. The police were just on scene, and eventually they deployed tear gas and went in to get the guy. And, it's just the media trying to turn everything. Like, what if someone, sees something like this, and so someone tries to knock on their door to borrow some water and just shoots through the door? The media needs to be more responsible. We always harp on that, but here's just another incident where it's, they try to turn a situation that has really nothing to do with the outside weather or anything, and they try to turn it into, their what's the word? Their lobbying cry, or their rhetoric, their propaganda.
Total propaganda.
Well, it's because of the next article.
Exactly. So the next article is new storage requirements coming for California gun store owners. Ryan, have you read through this one?
Not the bill, but I've read enough summaries of it.
Yeah, so the bill is SB 464, introduced by State Senator Jerry Hill, but basically it looks like it's going to go to Governor Brown's desk. Looks like it probably will be signed, but it does say that gun shop owners will be required to implement at least one of the following security measures to help protect their stores from the types of attacks with people driving cars through front doors and walls and things like that. So requirements are storing firearms in a locked fireproof safe or vault on the business premises, storing firearms in a locked steel gun rack, storing firearms in shatterproof or other specified display cases, running a hardened steel rod or cable at least 1/8 inch in diameter through the trigger guard, installing steel roll-down doors on perimeter doors and floor-to-ceiling windows. The guy who introduced this bill thinks they shouldn't be too much of a burden on business owners. Business owners disagree.
Well, what I find that's interesting about this California mandate here in Virginia, it's kind of common sense. One of my good friends, Bernie, he owns Virginia Arms, a very large and successful gun shop over in Manassas, Virginia. Bernie had outside of his store, he has pillars on the sidewalk so that people can't ram their cars in. He has shatterproof glass cases for all the handguns. All of the rifles, the long guns are behind the counter. Every one of his employees, which is about 8 salespeople, they're all armed visibly. He has them open carrying. They're all proficient. They've all trained at training classes with us and things like that. And he has roll down doors that they close at night. So that's like protecting your investment. Like, I don't understand the mandate for it. Like, that's kind of common sense, I would think. Or even if you were an insurance company, you would have certain checklists of things that you'd have to do to get the insurance, right? I mean, am I just way off base here? Or?
No, you're right. The problem, though, is even though this law might make sense, and it kind of does, and I can see the arguments against it, there's a lot of common sense things that I don't want legislated, right? I don't want the government to force me to do something that's common sense. So that's one argument. The other, though, is I kind of like it from the lawyer standpoint. Is I hope you guys don't crucify me for this, or the listeners out there, is I don't like legislation. I don't like laws. I think we have too many laws. I don't like all that. However, when you have something like this that's actually specified, and some of them are pretty reasonable, it's not this incredible threshold, I think it takes a lot of the liability off of the shoulders of the gun shop owner. So here's what I mean. The ATF requires reasonable security for FFLs. So an IOI, the industry operations investigator that comes and does the inspection, will not yank a license or cite somebody with a violation or not give an FFL because you don't have those, they call ballards, the things that keep people from crashing through. They won't take your license away because you don't have those.
Got it.
They won't even say you have to have a safe or you have to have this type of alarm system. There's no actual standard. What you have to have is reasonable security. Well, the problem I have is the easiest vulnerability for anti-gunners to attack gun people is when bad things happen, when you have negligence.
Right.
So that's how, the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, you're protected as a gun dealer if your gun's used in a crime unless you were negligent. Well, if the standard for everybody is have those ballards, I hope that's the right word, those concrete posts out front, and you happen to not, and somebody comes through your gun store, busts through the window, and those would have stopped them, takes guns, and heaven forbid commits the next mass shooting with them, I'm wondering, does that now open you up to liability because you clearly weren't reasonable with your protections, therefore you're negligent? When it's in the law, I love as a lawyer to be able to hold up black and white and say, I checked box 1, 3, and 5. I did exactly what was required. Therefore, I as a person am not responsible. Go blame Jerry Brown for not making a good enough standard.
Got it.
Yeah, I will say here in Colorado, we have had a rash of these throughout the Front Range. I know personally 3 separate gun stores that have had smash and grabs, people driving cars or vehicles through the front of the building and then just running in, grabbing what they want and leaving. but there's been probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 here in the Front Range. It's just, I mean, it's past just past something. What's the word I'm trying to look for here? It's not an anomaly anymore. It is actually something that is happening very, very often. We read about it constantly. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of these gun stores, in my opinion, are not providing reasonable protection. They're closing up their doors. They may have bars on the windows, but you smash the glass, you walk in and you take whatever you want off the wall. Again, I don't want to legislate this stuff either, but I feel like maybe we're a little bit lax in our security. Although I totally understand that the concept of a store that has, 1,000 guns, putting those all in a safe at the end of every day is just completely not untenable for a business owner. I mean, they just can't do it. They don't have the resources. So I guess I don't know what the answer is here. I want people to do things that are common sense. I don't want the guy to walk into a store with a gun slipped in his waistband, but I also don't want to legislate everything in the universe. So I guess I'm not even sure what I would say the answer is here.
Right. But I would hope you would agree that if somebody was absolutely ridiculous on how little security they had, that they should maybe partially be blamed for that, Sean? Would you agree?
I do. But,
so we just got to draw the line somewhere, I guess, right? And that's the problem, is where do we draw that line?
Yeah. What is reasonable security? What does that mean? To me, my version of reasonable could be completely and probably is completely different than Baraka's. I have no idea about what reasonable even means. It's just too much of a gray area.
Right. And see, going back to what Ryan says, I'm just like him in the regards that I don't want things legislated. Just like our like I said, our pardon me, gun ownership is your right, but safety education is your responsibility. I don't want it legislated that you have to get training just because you own a firearm. I want it to be a responsibility thing that you want to do on your own volition, not legislated. So I'm with you there, Ryan. I understand exactly where you're coming from.
And the constitutional argument here is dangerous too, is once we agree that the government is allowed to tell you the level, then kind of like with the mandating training and mandating this, they could just make it inconceivable in the future and just make the standard so high they could put you out of business. So that's the slippery slope problem too.
And okay, so now we're talking, someone mentioned over in the YouTube chat, what about the kitchen table FFLs? How do they do this? Well, it's probably a lot simpler for them to just put all their guns in a safe at the end of the day. In fact, they're probably already in a safe. So, it's probably not going to put a huge burden on them.
They also don't have as big of an inventory.
Exactly. Yep. Their inventory can be moved in a couple minutes by one person, probably. I don't know. It's a good one. I guess we'll see where California goes, and then we'll see that rolled out across the United States, since California is definitely a testing ground. Holy clickbait, Batman. Governor Brown about to get bill to disarm teachers and domestic violence victims. I was so mad when I originally saw the headline. So I went over to Breitbart, and really, this is just a clickbait headline. Really what it is on May 12, 2017, Assemblyman Kevin McCarty published AB 424 with the aim of disarming teachers in the 5 districts which allow them to carry for self-defense. Basically, it just rescinds an allowance where district superintendents are empowered to allow teachers and staff with concealed carry permits to carry on campus for self-defense. So look, I mean, clickbait or not, this is some more garbage. Like, why? Right now, the state allows superintendents to do whatever they think is best for their district. And a lot of these superintendents that allow it are probably much more rural areas where, it's a lot different than big cities and things like that. So yeah, they're trying to take it away. They're trying to give the state government control over everything instead of kind of just issuing it out amongst the educational systems. So it makes me mad. You guys?
I don't think laws should be allowed to be interpreted by one human being in an area. I think that's kind of anti-democracy. I didn't like that when there's the Clio requirement for silencers. It allowed 99.9% of the people in a certain county to want silencers. But if that one person happened to be the sheriff, didn't want them, that one sheriff could effectively ban silencers in the whole area. Same thing here. I don't think the power to decide whether a certain law works or not, especially with a fundamental right, should ever be vested in one person.
So you're saying not to have the law, or not to give superintendents the ability to decide? You're saying have it up the chain a little bit, or you're not saying that? I think
I want to get rid of everything, almost everything.
Same.
Right? I'm libertarian to a fault. So I would rather we didn't have the restriction in the first place. And I guess it's better to kind of get rid of the restriction by allowing some people to choose to do it. But I just think that's weasel words. That's not really getting rid of the restriction at all. I don't think we should have a restriction. I think I think guns should be allowed everywhere. I think people that are offended with guns at schools aren't offended with the guns that are protecting their jewelry stores with a security guard. I don't get it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just so you don't think that they were 100% clickbait where they do mention domestic violence victims. Apparently they're saying that even if they are victims of domestic violence, they still couldn't carry if they had a concealed carry permit. So, every time they go to work at school or something like that, they become a sitting duck for whatever may happen. Very interesting. The next story, kind of ridiculous. Teen shoots mom to death because she wouldn't let him keep a puppy.
I saw this today and I was just flabbergasted. Again, both there's at least 3 stories here that goes back to the reiteration of the same thing. Education, training, proper mindset. All of that comes from education. There's no way that this teen should have, okay, obviously something's not right in his head, number one. But what I'm saying is, I feel that if the parents had been educated enough, this child wouldn't have been able to get to whatever firearm that they used to kill this mother. You know what I mean?
22 caliber.
People always put down 22 LR like it won't kill, like it's just a squirrel gun. And here's another perfect example. There was a kid who was killed in Kentucky. Same thing. His grandpa gave him a 10-22. The grandpa left it loaded in a corner. His 4-year-old brother came. He left it faced up like this, and he messed with the trigger and shot himself. I mean, again, it's just it goes back to people being educated to learn how to be safe. Because where was that gun? Why did he have access to it that young? And that's all I can really say. It's just a travesty.
It is. I agree. I don't know. Sometimes you just don't know.
So I think firearm safety for kids definitely needs to be taught to kids, but it needs to be taught more to parents.
Yes.
And I'm actually trying to put the pieces together in a kid's book, gun safety book, because of this. Cool. And it's actually the book is like disguised as a story for the kids that kind of teaches them. And then the back of the book is like, all right, parents, put the kids to bed. This is for you. And one of the things I talk about is never, ever, when we go through like the main rules of gun safety, and I talk about treating a firearm like it's loaded, I explain that as saying, never should you ever do anything that after I come and yell at you, your response was, but it's unloaded. So never should a kid be able to have access to a firearm without a parent around.
That's right.
So I try to teach them it's either on you and in your direct control, or it's locked away. And I think it's sad. It's horrible that this happened to the mother. It's horrible that Newtown happened because guns weren't secured, properly away from a kid. It's bad. Yep,
completely agree. And this is a 19-year-old. That when they
it was.
Yeah, okay. When they he was at the very top. So definitely should have had the gun away. It was a 22 caliber rifle. Walked in, 1 shot, and unfortunately 1 kill.
Yeah. And
now he's going to be in prison for a very long time.
Well, you know what though? 19 years old and she was sleeping. It's not the gun. He could have. Yeah, he was a murderer. He could have done that with whatever he wanted.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, if his intention was there to murder, no matter what. Yeah.
100% agree. All right. So if you guys enjoy this show, This Week in Guns, please pledge your support for the show. You can go to firearmsradio.tv/pledge. Not only can you find This Week in Guns, but you can find all kinds of other Firearms Radio Network shows where you can just pledge a small amount to. And here's what that does. It helps them travel to go look at the new guns, to go to the shows and do things like that. It helps them buy equipment like microphones. Honestly, for We Like Shooting, if we didn't have crowdfunding, we wouldn't have a lot of the stuff that we have, to be perfectly honest. I'm in a really nice studio. We've got this studio, another studio, and an office. We've got equipment. We've got lights, microphones, things like that. And all of these things are made possible because of the listeners who believed in what we were doing. Please go visit firearmsradio.tv/pledge. It really, really does help. Even if it's a small amount for you, it's a huge amount for us. So go check it out. And we absolutely appreciate every single contribution. It is time now for the I'm Offended files. The one that I wanted to talk about, and if you guys have another one there that you'd like to talk about, feel free. But there's a new public PSA campaign that wants California residents to ask if guns are present before kids play with friends. So I don't really want to read like the entire thing because it's very long, but there's I don't know. Would you guys do that with your kids?
So, okay, so me having 3 daughters, ages 9, 7, and 4, all of our children know about gun safety. My wife carries her gun on her 24/7. We live out in a very country area. Our driveway is a quarter mile long. Our closest neighbor is, 500 yards away. And so we carry our guns around the house all the time, all day. One of our members of MASF, and it's actually on our website, wrote an article about, I thought I lived in a safe neighborhood. One of our friends, Rick, lives here in Loudoun County, second richest county, middle of the day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He's carrying his gun, comes home from work, puts his gun away. There's 4 guys trying to break in his front door, and it's just him and holding his door, bracing. His wife can't hear because their toddler's screaming. And I know that's off the topic, but I just wanted to explain the reason why I'm circling back. So give you a little latitude here. But we explain to everyone that when they come over our house that we have guns. We tell parents that when you do a play date, my wife is carrying, she always carries appendix, and the mothers never have a problem with it. Not one single one. They're like, that makes me feel good, that to know that it's on you, they can't get to it, and that if anything happens, you can defend our children. We have had not one person complain yet. Here in my office, my hunting rifles are on the wall. I've got some unloaded ARs. There's no ammo anywhere near. And they know that they have flags in them, and there's things through the trigger guard. So again, we always let people know. We tell them that there's no way that your child can get access, and there's nothing for them to fear. And we tell them ahead of time because we want them to understand. So that's my thought about, what we do as a family.
When my kids were growing up, we absolutely didn't. I didn't let them go really to strangers' houses necessarily without me at least talking to the parents and knowing the parents. And then I made a judgment call based on that. I didn't ask specifically if there was guns or anything. I just made a judgment call on the people. Okay. And I let my kids go to places where I thought that they would be safe with the people. Ryan?
So I'm glad you guys are saying that, because I thought I was going to be unpopular on this one. In that book, I mentioned in there, as I'm making an appeal to parents to be more aware of this, I'm trying to make it to where even anti-gunners would want to read it and learn. Because I put in there, I don't care if you don't have guns in your home. They're going to be going over to friends' homes where people might have guns.
Correct.
And in the appeal, I said, nobody or most parents that are so vigilant and aware that they'd even think about this would take their kids and drop them off at a friend's house knowing there's a pool in the backyard without asking, does that gate close?
Right.
Or is there a fence around your pool? And that isn't considered rude. That's not considered taboo. That's just normal. But why do they then feel weird to ask about guns? And so I actually make the plea. So I'm glad you guys didn't beat up on it, because I was like, oh no, I'm actually telling people it should be normal. It should be, hey man, you got any unsecured guns right now? And I've actually started to ask that, and I won't share the story because the person would be identified. I made the mistake. I had my kids stay at someone's house and found out the next day and blamed myself so much that I now ask people, and I've actually a couple times had friends be like, oh, you're right. You know what? I do. Let me go take care of that real quick.
Dude, that's awesome. And I love the analogy, Ryan, you give people to relate to with the pool, because everyone can relate to that.
Yeah,
there's been so many accidental deaths for children walking in the pools and falling in. So that's great.
Well, the reason I decided to write the book is my daughter came home and just rattled off fire and pool safety to me that she was learning at school. And I said, and that was the like light bulb that went, wait a minute, they're hammering fire and pool safety, but it's so taboo to talk about gun safety. Where are we going to get this? But anyway, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so that'll do for that segment. Moving on into the what is it even called? I haven't been doing the show long enough yet.
Oh, full auto news segment.
Yes, that's the one. So Ryan,
that's where each one of us pick a story to talk about.
Yes, exactly. Ryan, what was the one you picked?
I picked why I'm going back to Arizona, because I'm going to go try and get on that bison hunt.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? Now, the only downside to it is they don't let you keep the meat. I wanted to know if I could keep the meat and take the meat from the other people that didn't want theirs. I'm happy to load up on bison meat. Yeah. So that's on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. The National Park Service is actually looking for help in culling the herd up there. I think it's cool that they're looking out to hunters to try and get this done, and I can't wait to hear how they do the lottery system. If you guys haven't been there, I'm defensive about Arizona because, of course, that's where I grew up hunting. Because everyone thinks it's like Wile E. Coyote Desert. Oh, that's like the middle. Up by the Grand Canyon, it's, Flagstaff is at 7,000 feet at the bottom. It goes up from there. Guys, it is gorgeous trees and snow and bison. So, Sean, Let's
Prescott
all hope
too.
I get to go, because I'm going to be taking some cool pictures next to some bison.
That would actually be pretty dang awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. I was out there a couple years ago to visit my friend Alan Normandy, who runs Battle Comp, and he lives in Prescott, and it was beautiful. Just like you said, trees and
Yeah.
just
It gets even greener as you go. Prescott's right in that middle country, but it's gorgeous there. And then it goes up for that's where I get my first antelope. But yeah, it goes up. The Grand Canyon is just a solid forest. And man, I think it's a good thing. And I'm glad that the American model of conservation is still alive and kicking. I mean, the reason we are so much better on the animals in our country versus a whole bunch of other developed countries is because we believe in thinning a herd can actually help the herd survive. So
it's true.
I'm glad we're doing it.
Pretty cool job. Physically fit and proficient with a gun are the requirements. I mean, I'm sure
that's an easy one all day.
in the interview, but that's the two that they point out. So I think that's actually really cool. Baraka, did you have one that you wanted to talk about?
So the police shoot and kill a BB gun wielding carjacker that led them on a chase. Okay, so here's the thing that, again, where you're talking about the media being irresponsible, I feel, in this regard. That headline specifically to get people riled up. Those police officers, I have law enforcement friends in 30 different states, and they have families they need to go home to. They are not going to take the time. If you are using something, whether it be a replica, a BB gun, or even a plastic gun that you've taken the orange part off, and doing it in commission of a violent act like ripping someone out of their car, they have to assume that it is a lethal weapon that is being used in commission of that crime, and they're going to not sit there and guess. So it makes me furious that these news agencies go and report after the fact that it was later found. Put yourself in the officer's position. They have a family. They're trying to protect the public at large. They think that this person may resist and start firing off rounds and causing collateral damage and killing people around. They have to assume the worst thing. But then to say, oh, the guy's dead, it was just a BB gun, is so irresponsible. That is not it's just wrong. It's ludicrous. It's asinine. It just doesn't make sense.
Would it have mattered if the gun was unloaded? No. But it would.
Thank you.
It actually would be less harmful than a BB gun.
Yeah, they've got to make these decisions so quick, and to armchair quarterback constantly.
It's unfair. It's just completely unfair to our law enforcement officers. I mean, it's absolutely unfair. They're trying to protect the public at large, and they need to go home safely to their own families. And it's just not fair for that to happen to them.
And we can't hold them to that standard, because guess what I'm going to do if somebody pulls a BB gun on me and I don't know it's BB gun.
Exactly.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah, you don't wait. If you wait, then you're done. You're finished. You don't have a chance to react. You don't have a chance to respond.
That hesitation is all it takes, as we all know, enough for somebody to get a shot off on you and kill you. And they're, who's going home, you or them? I mean,
so whenever I see they used to have them more popular, the reality TV shows where they do these pranks where, like, bloody people come running out of parking garages and things like that to try and scare people. Every time I see that, I stop and I look at my family. I'm like, you guys remember, you never do that to me, right? When you're signing the papers with the production company thinking Ryan's going to think this is funny,
nope.
You realize I'm going to jail. So don't put me on that show.
That is exactly what I tell all my friends. I'm like, don't ever do that, because it'll end bad for everybody and I'll end up in jail. And that's just not cool.
I think we kind of know in our community now. I mean, to be honest with you, I really do.
I don't know. There's some people that I feel like I need to verbally warn, but other than that, mostly we're good.
Okay.
My story is 12 gauge trip wire. Easy for me to say. 12 gauge trip wire alarms are put to the test. So Tau Flittermouse takes a closer look at the 12 gauge trip wire by Fifth Ops. So basically what these are is it's a little thing that holds a shotgun shell, and you pull out the spring and the firing pin, and you insert a cotter pin, and then you can tie a trip wire to that pin. So it's like if you're out and about and you don't want the Sasquatch to attack you or something like that, you could surround your encampment with these little tripwire alarms, and they come with little shotgun shells that are, basically inert, just gunpowder and nothing else inside them. So they make a really big sound when someone trips the tripwire. Well, being Tau Flittermouse, they take it one step further and they load them up with things like pepper and glitter and magnesium and things like that. And then they shoot them into mannequin heads on very, very slow motion cameras. And it's just really cool. So these are actually allowed in California. They're not destructive devices. They're not regulated in any way, shape, or form. And just kind of interesting. I'm not sure that I really want to be woken in the middle of the night by a shotgun blast, but what about you guys?
No, there's court cases actually about this that will hold, because you know what people are doing. They're putting shotgun shells in this.
Of course, I was going to say, obviously.
There used to be ones I saw at gun shows that looked like mouse traps. They were like a piece of brass that people could like tack to a tree, and it used like a mousetrap style spring and like hinge, and the mousetrap bar would come over and hit like the firing pin and go. They called it, perimeter report or something like that. You could get them for like $5 at gun shows.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. I don't understand why they're not regulated. Again, I don't believe in more laws. You guys got to trust me, but that's a firearm. As far as I'm concerned, the definition of a firearm, that meets the federal definition of a firearm. If it goes bang and a projectile comes out, it's a gun. That's a gun. But the other thing is, people that do this need to realize that they're going to be ones that are held liable. There are actual like first-year law school court cases about people setting up tripwires to shotguns, and you cannot spring traps like that for people. It doesn't matter they're breaking into it. You can't have a trap like that laying in wait to hurt somebody. So be careful with those folks.
They seem like a really bad idea to me. And I was going to ask, I mean, how long before there's a court case on these and they're no longer allowed everywhere? It just takes one.
I don't get how they are now. I don't think it needs a court case. I'll have to look into it. But I mean, even blank guns that would allow you to put a live round in and a projectile come out it's a firearm as it exists.
Well, I also think it's overkill because they make those same kind of tripwire type alarms. It's just a little plastic, loud, squeaky box, and it has a little metal contact thing. And when the contacts are removed, it goes beep beep beep. Just use that if you.
Yeah, really this is so ripe for a kid.
Yes.
Going up to let their friend in for getting shot. It's. I don't know. I would put this in the negligent category.
Completely.
When somebody gets hurt, that you're putting those out there, and I don't know.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to happen sooner rather than later. Top Fluttermouse is a really big YouTuber, and now out there, a lot of people are definitely going to probably be looking at these, using these, and hurting each other with these. So anyway, that'll do it for the Full Auto News segment. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to talk to you guys real quick. Baraka, what have you been up to? What's new? Where can people find you?
So as you guys may or may not know, listeners out there, it's been a while since I've been on the show. We just wrapped up our 29th episode of Civilian Carry Radio here on the Firearms Radio Network. It's every Wednesday night live from 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This we just had our previous guest yesterday actually was Kelly D. Venden from Criteria Tactical. 30 years. He was a Ranger and also in Delta Force, and then he was an Air Marshal for 10 years. I mean, the guy is a phenomenal shooter, phenomenal American, going around and helping now train civilians with all of his expertise. Next week we have Andy Lander from Green Ops, and he also is one of the people who is in charge of training for the National Rifle Association here in Fairfax. And we appreciate everyone coming to listen to our show. It's basically our podcast specifically interviews top trainers and law-abiding citizens throughout it's the reason we call it Civilian Carry Radio is because we're all civilians, non-military, non-law enforcement. We want everyone to understand that it's you and only you responsible for your own safety, and to take that responsibility for your life. You don't need to worry or wait on anyone else. Superman's not going to come and save you. We have the Second Amendment. Go out, purchase a gun, get training, learn proper mindsets and learn about the laws so that you don't do like Ryan was saying, and there's negligence on your own part because you didn't train well enough. You shoot someone when you're trying to defend yourself. There's been too many cases that people go out and buy guns, but they don't get the education that goes along. And there's a lot of collateral damage. There's a lot of negligence, and there's a lot of bad things that can happen. All that can be avoided with just simply getting the proper education to learn safety and through training and having the right mindset when you carry a gun. Outside of that, our charity, Modern American Shooting Firearms, you can check it out at mesf.co. We're a specific charity dedicated to firearm safety education and training and proper mindset. What our mission is to get people out there in the world that can't afford a 2-day, $450, $500 class, 1,000 rounds of ammo, don't have eyes, don't have ears, don't have a gun, to get financial scholarships for people to be able to get that in their state. So check us out. Go to our website. If you like what we're doing, support the show, support Civilian Carry Radio. And I appreciate you having me back on the show, Sean. Thank you.
Great to have you back. Great to talk to you again. Ryan, how about you? You're up to everything these days.
Oh, I know, dude. I was actually working on, so the first place people can go to find out stuff for me is ryankleckner.com. Sound it out. If you spell it wrong, Google will help you. And as I was putting together like some bio kind of CV stuff of what I do, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing way too many things. There's too many titles to try and figure out. One is I do a podcast as well, my own, Going Ballistic. I do that most Tuesday nights. Sometimes I get tied up with other things. 10 p.m. Eastern, I do that live if I have to change. I put it on my Facebook page. So really, if people want to find out, just the RyanKleckner.com. I'd love it if they followed me on Facebook or other social media to see what's going on. The support for the Long Range Shooting Handbook has still been amazing. I actually recommended somebody else's book. I'm one of those people in the industry that likes the rising tide theory and helping other people out too, and not trying to be stingy. And so I recommended somebody else's book, a competitor book. And I said, don't buy too many copies though, guys. And sure enough, he knocked my paperback down in the rankings on Amazon. So that's good. I had that many followers. It was great. I'm doing Rocket FFL has really taken off. I mean, this month has been exploding since I told you guys about it before. It's helping people get their own FFL and keep their FFL through the right compliance training. It's all at rocketffl.com. And I've been teasing a program that I'd like to announce if we have the time and tell people officially on your show, Sean.
Nice.
I've been teasing this program that was going to get people online, was going to get them the ability to carry a concealed weapon legally, not competently, legally, checking the box, in over half the country. Like not even having to leave their house except to get a fingerprint cards. And it's through a couple neat finaglings with the law and how it's going to work out. And so what I did is I finally made Rocket CCW. I liked the Rocket FFL so much, I did Rocket CCW. And what you can do is it's going to be a half hour, and I'm going to be telling you so many times in the middle of that half hour, this is not enough training. This is not to make you competent. This is to check a box on a form. But after you do that, you will be able to get, no matter where, this is even better, no matter where you live in the country, you'll be able to get a CCW that lets you carry in those 32 states. So I'm hoping it'll be popular. I'm hoping people will enjoy it. And what I'm going to do, Baraka, we need to talk, man, because I want an entire library once people join Rocket CCW of all the training that they can get. So this is, again, just to fill out the application. I'm actually in the training course going through the steps of the application and reminding them that this safety course is just to do one of the steps. And then I'd love to pass them off to folks like you right there in the course to get more training. But anyway, Rocket CCW, check it out. Let me know what you guys think.
All right. Awesome stuff, man. Thanks for announcing on the show. I signed up for more information because this is definitely relevant to my interests. That's for dang sure. And I've got it up on the screen here. So yeah, check out Rocket CCW, Rocket FFL, RyanKleckner.com. Man, you guys are just going to be everywhere. Going Ballistic Podcast. We've got all Baraka stuff, Civilian Carry Radio, MASF. Excellent stuff. You guys are really super busy, and I love to see that and love to support you guys too. So thank you very much for being here with me tonight, guys.
We appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Ryan, I just added you on Facebook, just so you know, so we can catch up and connect.
Oh, thanks, man.
All right, my pleasure.
All right. So for you guys listening, I'm going to wrap this up. Please leave your feedback, comment on the YouTube videos, or leave us reviews on iTunes. That actually really, really, truly helps. Thisweekendguns.com/iTunes takes you right there. And if you're so in doubt, it will even take you directly, into the iTunes app. You can also use our Amazon affiliate links. I want you to check out Patriot Patch Company. I just talk about them so much. I just love them so much. But they do have the best patches. And if you're not part of the Patch of the Month Club, you're definitely missing out. Go check that out. I want to add right now that This Week in Guns does not happen without the awesome production done by Kenny Ortega and Anthony Miller. This is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. And guys, we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And thank you so much for listening.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv.